What's the job people romanticize, but in reality is miserable? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. Brewer. Everyone thinks it's just chilling out and tasting beer, but it's just literally endless cleaning. Answer. Not to mention endless annoying questions. Shoot pay. Not every brewery lets you drink for free, which becomes less worth it the older you get anyways. OSHA is so far out of mind in a lot of places, and your body suffers a great deal doing the job. It was my favorite job I've had so far, but I'm extremely glad I got out while I was still in my 20s and can just enjoy it from afar now. Story 2. Video game developer. Twice the work for half the pay, and layoffs after the game is finished are almost guaranteed. Story 3. Medical field. Unless you're truly passionate, but if you're doing because it's a guaranteed good pay, then you're miserable. Answer. As a critical care nurse, the best I can hope for is that my shift is not bad. The spectrum ranges from not bad to you'll have nightmares and lose sleep, could possibly get sued, or could even end up in the hospital yourself. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the challenge of it all and the opportunity to help people through the worst days, weeks, months of their lives. But holy shoot, it's a stressful job. Story 4. Park ranger. People imagine taking hikes in the woods and living in a cabin. In reality, you are getting paid close to minimum wage, selling tickets at the entrance, or doing customer service type stuff at the ranger station. Also, you're probably going to be let go at the end of the season. You have to dedicate years of your life as a temporary employee doing seasonal work to even get the chance to apply for a permanent position. If you get lucky enough to land one of those, there is still a good chance a new president will get elected and lay off all the recent hires. Answer. As a former park ranger, it's a lifestyle for sure. Most people I know who secured permanent positions bounced around for 3-7 years before they found that job, often working at a bunch of different parks. On some level, that's part of the appeal, but you have to move every 48 months and find housing and work during gaps in employment and say goodbye to your friends every season. Sounds trite, but on a psychological level, it wears on you. Pay is low. Housing stock is bad at many parks. If the federal admin wants to fudge with you or your friends, there's not much you can do about it. Dating is difficult. Oh, and the higher you're promoted, the more likely your job is an admin desk job, which is probably not what you signed up to be a park ranger for. My NPS role was the most fun job I've ever had, but those who make it their career make serious sacrifices to be able to do that. I left due to the instability of work and a desire to live in one place year-round and be a part of the middle class. Story 5. Anything with business travel, there won't be interesting people waiting to chat with you in hotel bars. Ask me how I know. Answer. I used to run a travel agency. Many years ago, a guy came in looking for a job. He wanted to apply for the job where we would pay for him to travel the world and send back reports for clients. Just for shoot and giggles, I asked if he had any agency or travel experience. He said he had been to the airport. The only thing the guy had going for him, travel-related, was his name was Thomas Cook. I told him if there was such a job, I wouldn't be sitting there in the office. Story 6. Flight attendant. I have a friend who is a senior attendant with United, and the stories she tells are so stunning, I have to check her eyes sometimes to see if she is having some kind of walking nightmare. She loves her job. She is tiny, looks about 20 years old, has the sweetest face, so people have no idea that when they become aggressive or rude or demanding with her, she is essentially a black belt at dealing with total assholes. But no matter what, the work is exhausting. But the benefits are incredible. Free travel. It takes a very specific type. Answer. The thing that made flight attendants sound awful to me was when I discovered that the stewards only get paid for actual airtime. Their counted paid hours only begin the moment that the plane doors are locked. So getting to the airport, being in the airport, being in the plane waiting, none of that shoot counts towards your direct billable hours. Most jobs don't have that much extra on-site padding that doesn't count for shoot. Story 7. Being a professional athlete below the major leagues, they make infinitely less money, still have to work just as hard, and be on the road all the time. Answer. I played professional basketball after I got booted from the NBA. My career went like this. College, endless grind, NBA for 1 month, incredibly awesome minor leagues, little bit of money, endless grind overseas, more money, more grind, more pressure, live out of a suitcase, might get cut at any time during the season, might get a call to go play anytime during the off season, means you always have to train and be in basketball shape. Real jobs, grind. Story 8. It amuses me how much tradwife influencers fixate on owning land and animals. I've spent thousands of hours in my lifetime covered in fluids of various descriptions from animals: blood, amniotic fluids, pus, shoot, trying desperately to save their lives in the middle of the night. Holidays spent nursing sick horses back to health, skinning dead foals to foster orphans to a new mother, 2 hourly feedings for the ones who have no new mom, doing physio work on my knees bending the splinted legs of babies with contracted tendons, cutting open dead mares to pull foals out, and hoping they can be saved, traipsing through mud and rain all winter to make sure they're happy and fed and warm. But yeah, bake bread and rub one out for the simple farm life you idolize. Answer: it reminds me of people dreaming of helping cute animals and wanting to be a vet, where reality is lots of sickness and pain, harmful behavior, neglect, and people unable to pay for the necessary treatment. That's hard enough when Fluffy is 15 months, but doing what you do on something upwards of 1,500 lobs, I can't imagine. Sounds like being a trauma doctor with the stress to prove it. Thank you for doing the hard work that needs to be done. Story 9. Therapist. Oh, you just talk and listen all day? I wish I got paid to talk all day. Reality. Real-time listening closely while conjuring the best therapeutic technique to help this specific client. Also, remembering a ton of people's stories and nuances of specific relationships. Also, trying to prevent tragic and homicide. Mandated reporting. Also, therapy doesn't give homeless people homes. Also, back-to-back major mood shifts between clients. You are still recovering from a trauma dump while the next client is celebrating a major success. Also, tunes of secondary trauma exposure. Also, losing clients to overdose and tragic end fudge sucks. Answer: when I realized my therapist didn't talk to anyone but clients all day, she's a solo operator, I thought to myself, this is a truly shoot job. She's not talking about anything she wants to talk about. Also, my step-grandfather, whom I never met, was a British military psychiatrist at the end of WW2, and he got PTSD from merely debriefing POWs held by the Japanese. That shoot sits with you. Story 10. Veterinarian comes to mind. For one thing, while you spend your day working with animals, many of those animals are dying, and you won't be able to save them all. You like dogs? How about a job where you spend a significant portion of your time watching them die? Also, apparently many pet owners suck. Some of them are just incredibly stressed out because they are losing their beloved pet and take it out on you, and others choose to let their pets die of a curable illness instead of paying for a procedure. Answer: I never had a desired career path. And people's go-to when they heard that was, well, what do you like? And I'd say animals. And they say, well, you should be a veterinarian. Even as a child, I knew part of the job was putting animals to sleep, and I knew it wasn't something I could do. I don't understand how anyone could romanticize the job, but apparently so many people do. Story 11. Lawyer. You spend a majority of your career arguing over money and throwing thousands of dollars a year at LexisNexis because they have the monopoly. Story 12. This is a borderline case as the job is portrayed negatively as often as it is positively, but there's still this archetype of reporters as intrepid truth-tellers who rifle through the bins of corrupt politicians and expose injustice wherever they find it. Those kind of reporters do still exist, but there's way fewer of them now. In the click economy, it can be really hard for editors to support investigative journalism. Those stories take a long time, carry legal risks only the biggest media companies can afford, and will usually get a fraction of the views compared to some clickbait schlock about a minor celebrity. Your average journalist is trapped writing about celebrity gossip or doctors' neat anti-aging trick they don't want you to know about and dislike themselves for it. It's a deeply cynical and depressing work environment. Most clickbait journalists started off wanting to be that intrepid reporter speaking truth to power. Story 13. Writer. It sounds glamorous sitting in some comfy office typing all day. Writer's block, deadlines, and editors have to be a meanie. Story 14. Baker. People have a vision of a young woman in a cute apron with a little boutique bakery. My whole family is made of bakers. My father is by far the hardest worker I've ever met, and he could only handle the job for a few years at a time before needing to take a break for a few years. You have to get up at obscene hours to make sure the breakfast goods are fresh every day. The machines in the back are brutally hot and extremely dangerous. Some will just maim you while others can be fatal, and that's just the off-season. During the holidays, it's a madhouse. I didn't see my dad from October to January during the years he was baking. Being the child of a baker was great, though. Bottomless vats of chocolate and racks of cookies. Story 15. I feel like people romanticize the trades and specifically carpentry, but as one, it's not as romantic as some people believe. Backbreaking work, being self-employed, being freezing, being too hot, getting hearing damage, serious risk of injury daily. Answer: I feel like I scrolled way too far to start seeing trades show up. I'm a locksmith by trade and no part of it is glamorous. Very seldom do you get a thank you. Usually it's, well, why did it take so long? Why are you charging so much when it only took you a couple minutes? Well, because it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you were 40 minutes outside of town. Story 16. Architect, you study for a significant portion of your earlier life, only to be stuck in front of a computer working in CAD software, adjusting a design that was never influenced by you. Answer: my girlfriend's mother got a degree in architecture right before the economy took a nosedive in the late 80s and early 90s. She graduated and there was almost no one hiring commercial architects because no one was building. So she found other office work. Eventually, when things picked up again, she stated looking for architecture work, but discovered in the interim it had gone from mostly drafting on part to CAD, and she had minimal experience with that. She could have gone back and taken classes in that, but was established enough in her job by that time that she didn't have the desire or energy to do that. It's too bad. You've seen her work and some models she did from that time, and they're great. Just hit the field at the worst possible time. Story 17. Anything, when done for 40 hours a week, endlessly, with an endless stream of interchangeable customers. Our brains were not selected for anonymous, disengaged toil with no clear, achievable goals, except ceaseless repetition for accumulation of an abstract quantity, money. We love meaningful work, but that's to say we want projects with concrete ends for ourselves or for people we know and like. That industrial and post-industrial economies replace that with an unending scale to mass produce. For strangers makes everything feel deadening and pointless. That's basically what Marx was trying to articulate with the notion of alienated labor. Our work life is a stranger to us. Story 18. Working with the elderly. The majority are not cute little old ladies. Most are chronically sick old men who are angry, scared, and stubborn. I'm actually oddly good at working with these folks, but many burn out quickly. Source: me, physical therapist. Story 19. The fashion industry looks fun and glamorous, but it's an incredibly exploitative industry with often low pay and a culture of bullying, often run by the biggest narcissist psychos you'll ever meet. Granted, it's not all like that and can be fun, but it's incredibly overrated. Story 20. Working in a bakery. It's not cute, whimsical, or cozy. It's being up before the sun every day, regularly burning your arms and hands, everything being sticky, taking your lunch break at 8:30 in the morning, and constantly trying to find new ways to circumvent fruit flies and disco rice. I've worked in corporate places that had fruit fly quotas, like a predetermined amount of them that were legally permitted to exist on site, and fully caked covered fly strips hanging directly over icing stations in the back. Disgusting. Answer: it's far more work than people expect. Feels less like a cozy, picturesque vibe and more like a factory production line, especially when you get a larger-sized order. Congrats. Someone wants 500 loaves again. Have fun standing at a table for hours on end. All things considered, I do enjoy it still. Worked different bakery jobs for some years now, and I'll take this over working as a cashier any day. Story 21. Librarian. People think we read all the time. No. Public librarianship means dealing with people, and people can be awful. Oh, most of the people are decent. I'd say 99. But the rest of them, whoo boy, some just give us good stories, but others are challenging. I've been intimacy harassed, threatened with a lawsuit for not giving him a library card, and faced a passing threat. For all that, I liked my job, and I loved the people I worked with. I sure didn't sit around reading all day, though. Story 22. Farmers, my father is one. And let me tell you, he had back pain since, but now he just do things in our farm that doesn't involve farming as he quit after an accident. Story 23. As someone who works in the fintech industry with dreams of escape, what I've learned from this thread, working just sucks in general, and we should all create our own commune in the woods where we grow our own food, trade our own goods, and dance naked around a bonfire under the full moon. Story 24. The allure of a large paycheck draws many into IT, a belief rooted in the high executive and managerial salaries. However, this pay often comes at the cost of extreme exhaustion. The daily reality for most IT professionals is a relentless cycle of fixing broken software, mapping new processes, and creating reports. This work demands intense, focused effort and constant self-education. The schedule is frequently miserable, with uncompensated overtime becoming the norm because management routinely underestimates the hours needed, often failing to account for necessary testing and sudden unexpected problems. It is a lonely profession, requiring absolute silence and isolation to dedicate all mental energy to solving a complex issue that may have materialized just moments before. Answer: internal tech support is the worst. You get no respect from the customers and no respect from your coworkers who think you rank below absolutely every other role. You need to know something about every piece of software. In my organization, there were hundreds of pieces of software, and we were expected to troubleshoot it all. Things are constantly changing. No one documents their software or troubleshooting processes and just expects you to deal with it. Then there's the business who, when things are running well, think you do nothing all day, and there are too many of you and you should be fired. And when things break down, they think you're incompetent and too slow to get things back up and running, and you should be fired. Story 25. I wouldn't say miserable, but zookeeping is an incredibly highly competitive, low-paid, physically dangerous job. Most people either eventually burn out or have to stop due to repetitive strain injury. Job security is extraordinarily hard. There is very little upwards mobility. And that doesn't touch on accredited versus non-accredited institutions and the mental challenges or animal welfare. I've been a zookeeper for nearly 10 years and love my job, but it is nothing close to what people imagine. Story 26. Over-the-road truck driver. You're basically homeless and the pay is pathetic. Sign up with the wrong company and you can find yourself owing the company money on payday. Story 27. The military, particularly the U.S. military. Everyone knows it requires sacrifice, but the reality is that it's not a group of ultra-competent operators making shoot happen. The reality is that it's a fudge mess. Even at the highest levels, it's just a bunch of dudes faking it poorly. I work for a non-American military, and every time we work with the greatest military of all time, the illusion of American competency falls apart. Shoot gets done, yes, but it's more like a bunch of boys arguing and just doing whatever. Even air safety. My country has strict rules and extensive regulations on how to operate aircraft. When we work with the Americans, it's literally fudge it wee ball. Story 28. Nursing. Spent years completing my prerequisites, so by the time I was on the floor for clinicals, I was shocked. Nothing really prepares you for it, and honestly, it's kind of hard to explain. So I get it. However, by the time you've made it to clinicals, you feel locked in, like it's too hard to turn back at that point. I'm glad I didn't let it scare me away, though. Story 29. Zookeeping. It's 85 cleaning, animal shoot, 5 Zims computer work, 10 explaining to guests, yes, the alligator is real, she just doesn't move a lot, and no, I don't paint her nails, they're just naturally white. Story 30. Actress. Thousands of rejection, 12-hour shifts under harsh lights, directors tearing you apart for micro-expressions, creepy casting situations, unstable income, and constant pressure to look perfect even when you're fudge exhausting, bloated, or heartbroken. Most of the job is waiting in hallways, with 20 other women who look like your clone, wondering if you should have chosen a different life. Story 31. I'll name 2 I have and 1 I've done. Nightclub server bottle girl. The money can be great, yes, but it's literally just preschool level customer service with an extremely high standard of beauty. I say preschool because I'm so tired of grown men not keeping their hands to themselves in multiple ways. It's not partying all the time and loving partying at all. I have like one coworker who thinks this job is fun, and it's their first job ever. They have a degree in hospitality, if I remember correctly. Any low-level manager, including retail and fast food, I won't say restaurant or nightclub manager because those paths are known to be scams by those in the industry. Retail fast food managers just seem like they're getting solid money for barely any more work, less in some cases. I don't know about other people, but I've been delegated tasks I never should have been doing in my role a million times. So anyway, it's just not actually good money 99 of the time. It's like $4 extra. Sometimes it's also 3x the work and $1 simple dollar. I'm an assistant manager at one of my jobs right now, and the only difference between me and my boss is $1 and 3x the work. Insane. They say if I work hard, I can have that job in whatever amount of time. I don't want it. Going on a tangent here, but if it was salary, mostly work from home, meaning I get that work done in half the time, yes, but it's not. They'd want me there 6 days a week, overtime, training employees, and running a whole establishment alone for $20 an hour in California, traveling to corporate meetings at least once a year. Are you crazy? My job is technically involving retail without doxing myself. I'm not really selling anything. They come, contracts are signed. When they don't need it anymore, they leave, and are hopefully replaced. Manager and computer stuff, blah, blah, boring stuff. Okay, anyway, third, dental assisting. Dental assisting is a horrible job for multiple reasons, but it'll keep it short. Most just think it's easy and pays good. The pay is nowhere near as good as people think. Pay starts below the general minimum wage because small businesses are allowed to follow different laws. Even in California, almost all dental offices are considered small businesses. When McDonald's paid 16 DA, paid 14.59. People who have crazy wages earned it, and their license might look like an alphabet. Most registered DA expanded functions level 2. Most DAs do not retire due to age. They retire due to early spine surgery and/or back issues. Every teacher I had in DA school had spine surgery. Many healthcare jobs are physically taxing in unimaginable ways, but dental assisting was eliminate my back at 18 years old. Just saying, took till 24 for me to start feeling the mild tingling of future back problems as a customer service employee. That's all I'll say for now. Story 32. Librarian, you must get to read books all day. No, most counter staff in the UK are on minimum wage or volunteers. Lower grades are mostly customer service, in a service struggling to survive while local authorities consistently cut corners and budgets. Story 33. Being your own boss. I have a relatively successful Etsy and sell handmade goods. In theory, crafting all day and making my own schedule is the dream scenario. In reality, it can be hard. How much you make each week varies. Customer ratings can make or break you. You are never off the clock, and burnout is very, very real. Story 34. Chef, lol. People watch The Bear and think being a chef would be fun. It's literally shoveling trauma down your throat. Story 35. Software engineer. Most of what we see in the media are fun tech campuses, free food, flexible schedules, and young competent peers. That's like 10 of the industry. The rest of it is filled with tight deadlines, incompetent people, and questioning why you ever went into the field. Story 36. Beekeeper. Not everyone is good at it like the people on TV, and the constant stings are awful if you have anaphylaxis. Story 37. Veterinarian maybe. You get excited for the animal aspect that you don't realize how draining this job can actually be. Dealing with sick animals and having to put many to sleep daily can take a toll. Not to mention that it tends to be a toxic workplace. Who knew that putting a bunch of people-hating animal lovers together could cause a toxic environment at times? It also has a high tragic end rate. Story 38. Traveling for business. Constantly here. It must be nice to see different parts of the country. I go everywhere and see nothing but the inside of airports, airplanes, rental cars, and hotels. Story 39. Hairstylist. Standing on your feet for 8 hours a day while also having to preform cut color services while simultaneously being an unlicensed therapist while all your clients trauma dump on you. The disrespect. So many people look down on this trade as if it's just easy work or it's not even a real profession, but a hobby. Don't even get me started on the pay. Unless you have your own salon, which comes with its own stressors, running a business, you will barely make any money unless you're doing it for 10 years and have a full clientele. Even then, you're still not going to really make the big bucks unless you work full time. And if you do, good luck with all the physical therapy and medical bills that will come with doing hair for 10 years full time. Your shoulders, back, neck are all going to be trashed. Varicose veins, foot problems. I could go on. I can't wait to get out of this profession. But yeah, it's such an easy job. All we do is talk and play with our hair all day. Answer, I was a hairstylist for some years. And not only can it be the most stressful job where you are basically using angles, chemistry, and artistry to handcraft an outcome people are paying good money for, but everyone's hair is different and handles certain lengths or colors perms 8C differently. Okay, imagine if you are an artist and your job is to draw whatever the client wants on the spot. Now imagine the canvas is always different. Sometimes the canvas won't display blues properly. Sometimes you need darker pencils, sometimes lighter, sometimes the paper rips super easily, and sometimes the paper starts to curl into itself every darn time you mark it with anything. Sometimes the paper crumples easily and you can't get rid of the creases afterwards. Sometimes you can. Sometimes erasing pencil lines can create a huge smudge. Sometimes it doesn't. That's hairstyling. And while I enjoyed the work, even though it was stressful as hell at times, the mix of clients trauma dumping and the industry basically being built on gossip and cliques like something out of a fudge high school was too much for me. Also, the money sucked unless you had a dedicated clientele that showed up every 6 to 8 weeks, which can take years to build. Story 40. Modeling, dieting ruins any slither of self-esteem you may have. Creeps and booking jobs is tough. I quit after 5 years and now in a different industry. This was all over 10 years ago before social media was important to you being a model. So now I'm guessing it's even worse, but I don't know for sure. Story 41. Being a professor, maybe also teacher, people fixate on the fact that we have a lot of time off, but at least for me, that's just August. And yes, not having much to do in August is an upside, but even that is only time off if you don't have a new class you're teaching the following semester, because if that's the case, you have to spend a lot of time preparing the class over the summer. People also seem to fixate on the fact that we only teach X number of hours, which in my school is 12 hours a week tops for a full-time professor. But the time spent in class is actually the easiest part. Having to prepare classes, presentations, worksheets, stay updated on the scientific evidence regarding the topics you're teaching, grade exams, read and grade essays and reports and papers, answer student and faculty emails, attend meetings is actually the bulk of the workload. I fell for the romanticizing when I was invited to teach at a university and thought I was going to have a chill time, but actually I've never had less free time. And I'm decent at time management. It's just that there's always stuff to do. Answer, and chasing research dollars, that was the just stressful part. You're constantly hustling to get money in the door so you can pay your students, but then you don't have the time to actually do any of the work. So you end up relying on students, which can be great and they can be incredibly creative. Or more commonly, you end up working late hours to get something for the report so you can get more money. Story 42. Doctors, many are just burnt out. I know many who went into medicine because they wanted to help people but spend too much time worrying about documentation to get paid appropriately, dealing with insurance company authorizations, and RVU productivity if they are working for a health system. The pay is great if you are subspecialized, but not nearly as good for pediatricians and PCP's family practice. Story 43. Maybe it's not as romanticized as I picture, but being a lawyer, 100, I fully believe that you have to have some sociopathic tendencies or unhealthy methods of numbing yourself to make it a lifelong career, unless you're single and okay with not being present for your family and friends. Story 44. Curator, underpaid, overworked, and your funding streams get cut year upon year whilst your visitors expect bigger and better exhibitions. Working with the objects and artifacts is cool, but unless you're in a big national museum, chances are your collection stores are old, cold, not built for purpose, and usually also either damp, moldy, or something somewhere is falling to pieces. There's never enough boxes and no money to buy any, but people turn up weekly and get angry when you can't take their donations because of lack of space. If you're a social history museum, everything feels like it has asbestos in it. The hair dryers, the old wallpapers, the asbestos nightgowns, the talcum powder, and the old makeup compacts, the old tubes of toothpaste. Enjoy your local museums, folks. They may only be small with basic exhibitions, but they're trying their best with tiny budgets, and you never know how long they'll be around before the local council gets rid of them, because culture is so underfunded, in the UK at least. Story 45. Video game QA. Sure, you get to play games all day. Broken internal versions of games over and over to find differences between the spec and what's in game. Story 46. Working with animals, doing anything in the veterinary field. You see a lot of neglect in passing. Also, working in a library sounds like it might be easy and fun if you are a bookworm, but generally you're dealing with the public all day, which is hell, especially for introvert HSP types. Story 47. Working in a library, specifically a public library. I wouldn't say it's miserable. I personally love it, but when I tell people I'm a librarian, they assume it's a very quiet, peaceful job, where all I do is read books and shush people. In reality, it's much closer to social work. There is a small percentage of people who actually read, come in to browse, and like to talk books. Mostly it's unhoused and deeply impoverished folks who don't have access to the internet or computers. These people are usually completely tech illiterate, or actually illiterate, unwell, and quite frankly, desperate. I do a lot of connecting people to inadequate resources in our community and teaching them how to do simple things like copy-paste or download files. There aren't a lot of establishments that just let unhoused people exist. The library is often the only place for them to go during the day. While most of these folks are completely fine, nice people, there's a lot of chaos that can come with a building full of people with no social or familial safety net. Also, when you see completely unhinged comments that make you go, who would think something like that? It's probably a homeless person with untreated mental illness who spends every day on a computer in a public library. Story 48. Kindergarten teacher. My mom is now retired, but she was one for over 40 years. She adores kids, but the stress she was being put though every day was not the healthiest. We live in Romania, and over here you can have up to 30 kids in a class. The noise was unbearable every time I called her. The younger, the more difficult to control them. The darn viruses they would bring to kindergarten, from early fall to late spring. The insane, entitled parents who believed only their child existed. The awkward conversations with said parents when their beloved perfect angel would bite and beat up other kids. Just non-stop mayhem. The worst part is that one of the 30 kids trips and hurts themselves. You can even go to jail because they were in your care. It's impossible to have your eyes on all of them at the same time during playtime. Yeah, no, sure it's rewarding, especially when she sees some of the kids who were in her class doing great in life and knowing she helped shape them as little children. But I could never ever do it. I think part of why I'm child-free was hearing all the stories of how some kids are by nature fudge up and no education in the world can fix them, along with all of the parenthood hardships. Story 49. On my burner account, so I can say this, but being a news reporter, hours suck. Pay is even worse, and you don't even work with a videographer or editor anymore. The 10 seconds where you're on screen seems so glamorous compared to the 9-hour workdays with insane deadlines and expectations. I love my job, but I wish people knew more of what actually goes into just being the person on TV. Story 50. Healthcare, when you viscerally realize how inefficient systems are and how uncaring administration is to their staff. Story 51. I'm a librarian. So often I have parents come up to me, sometimes church friends of my grandmother, sometimes patrons, and ask if I can talk to their quiet, bookish teenager about becoming a librarian. And I say every time I'm happy to talk with them, but it won't be a glowing romantic talk. You'll tell them it's a job that is largely customer service, quite often involves speaking in front of a crowd, and regularly includes intimacy harassment. Par for the course in public libraries where you are often dealing with homeless and mentally ill patrons. You'll tell them reading widely in my spare time for the sake of Reader's Advisory actually eliminate my love of reading, and now 5 years out of the public library system, I'm finally able to read for joy again. I'll tell them you have to get an expensive certification, but there aren't enough jobs. I was in the casual pool for 4 years before I found a full-time job. You'll tell them that I had a library patron turned stalker, that I once found someone partway through a tragic end attempt, and years later I still get this sick feeling every time I see a student sleeping at a desk, because that's how we found her. I enjoy my job, but it isn't the natural fit for the nervous, bookish, quiet people we were sold. Story 52. Making your hobby a career. Whatever it is, you're more than likely going to struggle with losing a hobby and having it become a source of stress instead. 010, do not recommend. There are people that make it work without losing their outlet, but they are the exception in my experience. Story 53. YouTuber influencer. You have to continually produce content to remain relevant, but most start producing masses of low-quality stuff and ultimately fade away or produce good stuff so rarely that they are forgotten. They get stressed either way. Story 54. Being a travel blogger, everyone thinks you're living the dream, but half the time you're just stuck editing photos in a hostile bathroom with no Wi-Fi. Story 55. Psychologists. People think we just sit and listen, but they don't know the weight of hearing people's often traumatic experiences. Story 56. A small animal vet. It's not cuddling fluffy, cute animals all day. It's literally sticking your finger up dogs' bums multiple times a day to express fishy-smelling anal glands, touching sticky, gooey, waxy ears, dealing mostly with shoot, piss, blood, and vomit. And you get screamed at a lot by the public when you tell them how much it is to treat their pet. Oh, you must just be in it for the money and other toxic emotional blackmail. Oh, you must be rich. No, I drive my mom's hand-me-down 12-year-old Fiat 500, and I rent. I could go on and on. If only I had known before I went to vet school. The veterinary profession also has the highest rates of tragic end and depression, and I completely see why. It's just awful on so many levels. Story 57. Journalist. At first, it's like, wow, you get to be on TV or have your name on a byline. You get to contribute to important issues and tell compelling stories. You get to travel and it sounds like fun. While all those can be true, it's also grueling work, long hours, and most of all, a very thankless job with terrible pay, if at all, especially when starting out. You can work hours to track down Muhammad Ali's lawyer, dig and sleuth around for his direct number, for a quick 30-second segment. It would have taken you like 8 to 10 hours. And then it's just on to the next. That's it. All that work, no recognition, just okay, what's next? You have to care a lot to be in the job. It's a grindy job with little to no pay, especially in the beginning. Most people I know ended up branching out to marketing or communications and make a ton more while doing less work than staying in journalism would have ever gotten them. Story 58. Being a scientist. Low pay, even lower job satisfaction. And employment opportunities are hard to find, if not nearly impossible. Story 59. Working for an airline as a flight attendant, everyone thinks travel, beauty, glamour, but in fact it's fatigue, a tight schedule, constant flights, rude passengers, and almost no sleep. Story 60. I've owned a business for 16 years. I used my knowledge and experience to start consulting several years ago to get people started in my line of work. A lot of people dream of starting and owning their own business. They dream of being their own boss, setting their own hours, and answering emails on the beach drinking Bahama Mamas. You aren't your own boss. Your clients and the government are your bosses, and you no longer have one, but hundreds of bosses. You can set your own hours as long as those hours include 2-4-7-3-6-5. You're never not working or have a pile of things to do that you wake up thinking about at 3 a.m. If you do take a day off, nobody is there to pick up the slack. When you get back to work, you have to do all the things that wasn't done on the day off. I actually do go to different places to answer emails, but it's usually coffee shops in the area. We have a huge destination resort in town that has a giant fireplace that stays lit all winter that will occasionally go sit in front of to work. But don't think running a successful business is a pathway to easy town. It's an insane amount of work. I'd say 75 of the people who hire me as a consultant don't make it to the end of the year. Some give up after a couple of months. And no, I won't refund your money because you changed your mind. Story 61. I would imagine now it's got to be anything dealing with influencers or streamers. It looks painful when you see them in the wild. Story 62. Anything in nonprofit that directly serves people. It's such meaningful work, yet you are literally worked into the ground, and no one is serving your needs. The pay is shoot, and you're usually doing the work of 2 to 3 people since teams can be very small. Source, me, a professional in nonprofit for a decade who is exhausted and has zero left to give. Story 63. Journalist. The sheer number of rom-com movies that have a journalist FMC just living it up. It's hell. Story 64. Teaching. It seems fun at first, but instead you're basically a second parent to kids and you don't get paid enough for what you do. Story 65. Everyone thinks the glam jobs are all perks and prestige, but they aren't. Endless hours, constant stress, and people expecting magic is the reality. The highlight reels hide the soul-crushing monotony, the politics, and the burnout. If you chase the image, you'll quickly learn the truth nobody posts online. Story 66. Working in fashion. If you work for a brand that pays pretty shoot, even at designer ones for midweight and junior roles, you're expected to work your jerk off, work overtime for no extra pay, and are seen as replaceable, so lots of people I worked with got sacked, and the turnover of staff is high. The benefits of getting free clothes gets old after a while. Story 67. All jobs are miserable at some point. Some are more tolerable than others. 98 of us only work because we need the paycheck. You may like or even love your job, but you wouldn't do it if you didn't get paid. Story 68. Game developer. People think you're playing games all day, or you get a chance to create these fantastic worlds. Most of the time, it is hard burnout through endless crunch cycles following the play. From corporate they stole from a Sensor Tower article. You eventually pump out a product that will either have a shelf life shorter than a micro-budget sci-fi movie or live tragically undead as a heavily monetized attention stealer. Story 69. As an attorney, I 100 say being an attorney is not as glamorous as we were taught in law school. It's extreme pressure, deadlines for days, a lot of paperwork, especially emails and letter that you need to carefully and strategic thinking about before they sent your opponents and clients to manage and calm down at the times. A single mistake or typo can lose a case. It's hotbed for burnout and other psychological conditions real quick. Story 70. Tattoo artist. If you go into it thinking you get to do your own art all the time and make money off it, you'd be wrong. Story 71. The senior advertising exec in New York. Sure, the people are great. The perks and entertainment are fun. When you travel, you go to interesting places and live high on the hog, and the pay is pretty good. But the hours are terrible, and you'll be kicked to the curb if you're even able to make it to age 50 in the industry with no prospects of future employment at anywhere near the same pay you used to make. You'll probably also have a drinking problem. Story 72. Anything creative like graphic designer, video editor, animator, You turn your passion into a job, and all of a sudden the joy of creating is sucked out of you slowly. The worst part is if you work for someone, not freelance, you're beholden to their visual identity and creative direction. Even if you're creating something objectively really good, they'll criticize it and ask you to revise it 100 times until the end product looks so shoot you're ashamed to admit you designed it. The client is always right in this industry, even if their ideas are ugly about SF. Then if people don't like it, you're to blame, even if you're powerless, really. Sometimes when a new logo comes out, or a movie poster, book cover, and people shoot on it, all I can think is that the designer probably had great pitches drafts, but the end result is what the client wanted and pushed for. Story 73. Day trader. People think this is a relaxed work-at-home job with a flashy lifestyle. It's extremely stressful, mind-warping even, and takes years to even begin to make a consistent income. Story 74. Sports show anchor. I dated a sports center anchor for a few years. He worked long hours, always watching over his shoulder for up-and-coming anchors who might compete for his slots. If you are not one of the top 5 personalities, it does not pay all that well. He used to scoff at the title of the dream job show that had someone win a spot as a sports center anchor. At the same time, it annoyed the crap out of him because he had put in his time at tiny little networks working his way up to a national spot. Story 75. Working at Disney World, Disneyland. Sounds so magical, but depending on your role, it's mostly just taking verbal, harmful behavior from guests, almost passing out from the heat, being paranoid that you might have accidentally broken one of the zillions of rules and are going to get in trouble for something stupid, and you get paid so little that everyone needs to have like 4 roommates just to afford a place to live. Story 76. I was super excited about getting into the news business, journalism. I do tend to idolize really great reporters. I don't like gotcha journalism, but I also know it's needed on some issues. I dislike the way so many news programs are written and produced. Pure tugging at emotions, pure hook into fake controversies, pure sales pitches for stuff disguised as news stories. Every new local restaurant story in your local news is a sales pitch disguised as news. The CNN webpage is fully 23's ads for ST to buy. Got into college to study it, and found out it's a very lonely profession. Where is the collaboration? Where are the morning meetings to discuss what is going to lead that day, who is working on what, or that show, or that issue? Where are the reporter partnerships in which everyone else is as happy to be working on the story as you are? None of those existed in real life in college, and I have an angry rebel in me who really wants to go report on and expose, if needed, the powerful and well-connected. Any of those students in college? Nope. Most of them were there because they like to write, or they like to work with graphics and design software on the computer. No one really wanted to go after the man. Going after the man is an old term left over from 1960s hippies who were trying to stop the Vietnam War and racism. Indeed, most of my young peers did not know the man exists, but he does. He does. The Epstein story is the perfect example of the man existing in America and pulling the strings of politics and the economy. He gets away with most of his crimes and becomes a multimillionaire, and we're all poor slobs. Then I got a job in a real live small-town newsroom. Perhaps here, people will collaborate and look for significant stories. Nope. Mostly it was single men worried about their love lives, or the married men were very worried about keeping their jobs and the ratings high. Whatever they had to do to improve our ratings at this local TV station, that is what they do. Don't want to investigate anyone lest we piss of the Republicans in the region. If they are a Democrat, Democrats are more forgiving. So yeah, they could go after the Dems a little bit. It was a news organization that actively avoided controversies and featured local businesses as news stories often. Why? To sell, so people will shop local, and so the businesses might buy commercial time at the station. I think it's unethical for colleges not to teach in the very first class, first semester, that this is really how the news business works. The news is the buddy and pal of businesses and politicians, not the uninfluenced fourth estate that seeks to hold them accountable. Because the minute you accept money from a business to run its ads, you are compromised as a news organization. IMO. Same goes for politicians. Anyway, ethically, every college needs to teach this reality of the news business in the first semester so everyone will know the truth and can change majors quickly if they think they will actually be able to hold anyone accountable by becoming a journalist. Biggest disappointed of the job, 2 biggest, was the sexism, ageism, and the lack of collaboration. Story 77. Being an artist is pretty romanticized. Artists have to make sacrifices for their work. Suffering is necessary for good art. Also, I just want cheap art and don't want to pay them the same way I pay for a plumber. Story 78. Interior designer. Majority of designers are narcissistic egomaniacs who have good taste and delegate the actual work to their employees. Many of them, small and large designers, have no idea how long tasks actually take and overwork their employees while paying them zero overtime. A big CA designer told my friend, "You should be thankful that you're allowed to work for me," when she brought up how many hours she had been working, 12, 16-hour days. Story 79. I'm a private investigator. I love my job, but I'm nothing like the P they show on TV and movies. I could work like that, but I choose not to. People always get excited when they find out my occupation, and then they're disappointed. Story 80. Being a psychologist or therapist, it's not just sitting in a cozy room, dressed in soft, muted clothing, thoughtfully writing notes, and saving people with your education. You're going to hear a lot of terrible things, you're not going to save everyone, and you're probably going to need your own therapist after a while. Story 81. Architecture. Most people think it is a fun and creative profession. That part is only a small part of the job. It is really mostly dealing with government regulations, imperfect construction, and to top it off, immense liability. Story 82. Working in the music industry, you can't have fun because it's all work and everyone is always networking, so they're incredibly fake. You're always traveling and working when you want to spend weekends doing things with people you love. The pay is terrible and people treat you like you're replaceable. Late nights, constantly. Story 83. Mail carrier. Honestly, I loved it, but mandatory holidays, never knowing if you're getting your full weekend, unsuspecting mandatory overtime, having to negotiate and justify your timing every day, and the general archaic management style made it pretty miserable. I could be walking 12 miles on an 8 BHR day, or randomly 20 miles with 4 HR's mandatory overtime. You just never know what you're walking into. It could be the perfect job, and maybe it was at one time, but it's not now. Story 84. Painter. You have to set your own schedule and do the thing you love most in the world, only to then sell the works and be asked to do it all again. Wait a minute, it's actually the best job ever. Story 85. Pretty much all trades. Everyone always says, "Oh yeah, great field. So nice to just go and leave the work on the job." LOL. It's always a white collar worker saying that's great and simple when they would never last or actually try to do manual labor. Story 86. Not necessarily miserable because it can be enjoyable if you have patience and energy, but being a scriptwriter is tough. You literally start from scratch every time, and the feedback from producers can be brutal. There are days when nothing comes out of you emotionally, but you still have a deadline. It's mental torture. I'm talking about the Philippine context, by the way. I don't know how it is in other countries, but here, where most shows aren't canned, but they're already shooting while the scripts are still being written, it's draining. Story 87. Working on anything related to commerce for very rich people in my country, I'm going to share a bit. Rarely will a really rich person treat you politely like she does in front of others. If you are a woman, you are gaining work experience and you are very young, there is always a disgusting old man who will not respect you and will want to use money to try to do something inappropriate to you. Over time, you realize who comes from a humble place and relates to a very rich person and who has always been rich, by the way they behave if they are frequent customers. I will not elaborate on this paragraph further. You have to keep a character happy all the time. Many like to feel like you were their employees when buying something. You have to do everything to treat them like a nobility. Spoiler, many of them won't respect you. This is part of working for rich people. And the minority thanks you and gives you some tip. Story 88. Event manager planner. Looks fancy from the outside, but behind the scenes, controlled chaos fueled by caffeine. Story 89. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Pick a job that is stereotypically unglamorous. Trash man, plumber, ditch digger. Then whatever joy you get out of it is amazing. Story 90. Being a postman is not the middle-class guarantee it used to be. Now, don't get me wrong, the money is still good. It's just not as good as what it used to be. Two different pay tables exist, where those who started their career before 2013, table 1, see an average of $20K more than their peers on the second table. Just feels like a continuation of the fudge you got mine philosophy from the older generations directed to the younger. Story 91. Being in the military, you'll be a hero and travel the world. You'll be a total badass like Rambo and find brothers for life. It's mostly being bored and miserable in the field, and you just get hazed a ton, and then you get out and never talk to anyone ever again. Story 92. I work and study abroad, and everyone thinks it is nothing but fun, exciting travel. Do you know what it's like to have your ability to sleep a whole night be determined by a 19-year-old in Europe not doing some dumb shoot? Now multiply that by several hundred, 19 to 24-year-olds. Yes, I travel sometimes for work, but it is work, not vacation like everyone thinks. It is also one of the most underpaid sectors of higher education. Not surprising because it is a field made up overwhelmingly of women. It's a field that often takes advantage of people who really want to help students expand their knowledge and worldview by constantly echoing how important the work is, but not paying people for their labor. It's not out of the ordinary for positions to pay in the 40Ks for jobs where they are requesting a master's degree. Story 93. Many high-paying jobs that require a professional license tend to deal with very dark and distressful situations. Often they are also very time-consuming. I'm talking about physicians, lawyers, psychologists, etc. You will encounter plenty of situations that will deeply disturb you. Story 94. Working at an arcade. Sounds like fun until you've memorized every ad-track screen and it's only been 30 minutes into your first shift. Story 95. Stay at home, mom. It's not like spending the whole day doing nothing, and the shift doesn't end after 8 HRs. Story 96. Anything in the creative field looks glamorous until you're sleep-deprived, underpaid, and arguing with someone about making the logo bigger. Story 97. Horse farm owner. Every horse girl, TM, wants this job, but I haven't ridden a horse regularly in years. I live in the most beautiful place on earth, but now I just ride the mower because half of my entire job is landscaping and groundskeeper. Mucking stalls is way less fun when the wind chill is at 40F or the heat index is a 110F. There are no days off for the flu, my current situation, and every date night has an asterisk. Only if all of the horses are fine when we leave and nothing happens when we're gone. Chasing down boarders to pay their board in a shoot. Economy when you know their family and situation sucks. Dealing with difficult horses slamming me into walls, stepping on me, dragging me, and kicking at me can really be a hazard. And it's not like I can just reason with them. No one sees the hidden work of ordering hay, budgeting, cleaning, swapping out broken things, etc. Everyone thinks board is expensive, and at the end of the day, you kind of want to be like, fine, then do it your fucking self. Story 98. Member of Parliament. On paper, a great well-paying job with lots of perks. In reality, it's a 7-day-a-week on-call slog trying to balance home, constituency, and Westminster life with little power, no ability to make change, and realizing you're on sub-minimum wage by time you factor in all the hours work is dealing with people who, by and large, dislike your guts. Story 99. Garbage men and women. You think it's just breaking out in the fresh sunlight of a beautiful morning, tossing cans into the back of a huge, powerful truck that can crush anything in the world, getting the first pick of all the treasure that people just view as junk. You may make mad overtime and get to retire at 50 as you keep the city rolling, knowing all this would come to a stop if you decided to not do your job. But really, some trash is messy and it spill all over your clothes. Story 100. Professional chef. Everyone thinks it's glamorous, but it's just endless stress and heat and yelling. Story 101. Chef work. Yes, you get to cook and possibly make some fantastic food, but it's long hours. You might not see your family or friends for months at a time. Especially in this day and age, the customers always think they know better because they have seen something on YouTube or somewhere. Story 102. Nurse. It's one of the most rewarding jobs in human terms, but it's such a demanding one, and I don't think they earn enough for what they do. P.S. My mother is a nurse. Story 103. Working in kindergarten. People think it's playing all day because they remember their childhood in kindergarten. In reality, as an adult, it's a mix of stress and boredom. Story 104. Welding. When you're 17 and you hear you can make $100K per year and you get to travel, it sounds amazing. Then you realize it is backbreaking work and all the places you can travel to are in the middle of nowhere with the worst weather possible. Then you find out a guy in his office is making $120K. Story 105. Sales financial advisors. I've had offers from multiple companies, and I've talked to people just starting out too. It sucks getting started on your own if you don't have a ton of friends, family in your wheelhouse to buy things from you. ESP if you're commission only. No wonder turnover is so high. Story 106. Being an actor is not just putting on a costume and pretending to be someone else for a lot of money. It's hard work, long hours, uncertainty of even having work if you're not one of the top people. Story 107. I feel like skilled trades are being looked at as plentiful and high-paying. They don't mention the plumber who gets covered in poo replacing a sewer line, or the electrician crawling through an attic in the middle of summer. Story 108. Product manager. I work in tech, and many people aspire and think they would end up becoming mini CEO. In fact, you end up becoming everyone's janitor. Story 109. Chef glamorized as creative and exciting, but really stressful, exhausting, hot, and often underpaid. Story 110. Being a vet, people get into that field because they love animals and want to help them, then spend the majority of their time seeing animals at their worst, putting them down, getting harmful behavior from owners, seeing owners who can't pay for treatment, so they have to put animals down who should survive, seeing the worst cases of neglect and harmful behavior, etc. I couldn't do it. I went into husbandry and management instead. Story 111. Chef, nobody thinks I'm the cool guy from The Bear. I smell like a French fry, have terrible working conditions, and my body is falling apart. 25 years in the industry. Story 112. A chef, high pressure, low pay. I love what I do. And now 20 years into my career, I have options. But man, the first few decades are a grind where you don't see your family. Story 113. Being a charter fishing captain, you rely on weather, fishing capability, bite quality, and time, none of which are on your side. Your clients think you have the best job on earth, but in reality, you're just a bus driver, isolated in the ocean with people whom have no clue the risk involved and what it takes to save your own life. Story 114. Being a narrative designer on video games, easiest to blame if things go wrong, easiest to take credit from things go right. Story 115. In a small way, IT. They think we're always integrating new environments and technologies, or that we are wizards with keyboards. Fuck no, my job is that I can explain to old fudge 2828282 how to save a document to their desktop LMAO. Story 116. Radio personality. You'll get sick of every kind of popular music there is, even if you liked it at first. I don't care how stunning your ratings are. One empty suit at corporate wants a new Belgian block driveway for his side piece's second home in Aspen. You're expendable. The money sucks. You're not paying the rent with how cool it was to hang with Peter Frampton for 20 seconds at a meet and greet. Story 117. Chef, it's not all developing new dishes and creativity. It's doing the same thing every day on warp speed. Then you get to clean for an hour or two, and you're on your feet and it's about 50 C. Story 118. Commercial airliner, maybe mid-90s and earlier. Anytime later, horrid. Glorified bus driver with a much longer commute. Story 119. Like working hard in a production is so noble and shows how hard working you are, but in reality people perceive it differently. Story 120. Politician or political staffer. People think super rich. Backroom deals in smoke-filled rooms, actually more like an episode of Veep. Or that episode of Parks and Rec where they have an open forum and people come to talk about random stuff that the Parks Department has nothing to do with and can't change. Story 121. Working at a major record label, you get to work with the cream of the crop artists, but pay is low and highly competitive. Story 122. Investment banking, you are worked 100 hours a week and sometimes have to pull all-nighters. Imagine sitting down for dinner with a friend, family member, spouse at a nice restaurant. Then you get a text that requires you to do something immediately. What do? You get up and go back to work. Story 123. Bartender. I worked with a competent woman who would slink into the kitchen and hide from people. This was at a busy high-end steakhouse. She made money but was miserable most shifts. Story 124. Working in a dispensary. People assume it's a laid-back and get stoned all day environment. It's actually high-paced retail that's strictly regulated by state cannabis laws, HIPAA laws, food service laws, and more. I love working in it, but no, it ain't easy. Story 125. Working at a doggy daycare boarding facility. Sure, you do get to see and play with lots of cute pups, but cleaning all the poop and pee up in the kennels with diarrhea and sometimes vomit from the nervous or elderly dogs. Having to go in on all holidays too, when it's extra busy. Story 126. Business school students seem to really fawn at the idea of being a management consultant when all it really feels like is being a graphic designer for PowerPoint slides. Story 127. Farming, especially small family farming. People imagine a simple, wholesome life, but they don't see the exhaustion, the financial uncertainty, and how quickly nature can destroy everything. It's miserable when a flood or storm comes and in a single day, you lose your crops, your animals, and your entire income. Story 128. Anything that involves business travel. Sometimes. You go to cool places. No, actually, I spend a few hours in an airport waiting for a flight that's likely delayed. Then a few more hours sitting in an uncomfortable chair until my back hurts. Then the next one or more days yo-yoing between a hotel that isn't home, sleeping in a strange bed, and an office client sites. I eat dinner alone, either picking something up and eating in the hotel room or eating alone at a bare restaurant. Then back to the airport for more waiting and uncomfortable chairs. The exception can be travel to cool cities, and if you can squeeze in some sightseeing, and if you travel internationally, you can experience some different cultures. But for the most part, domestic business travel sucks. Story 129. Definitely military. Many younger people seem to think that being in the military is like playing Call of Duty. Story 130. Plumbing. Every time I hear someone talk about pushing kids to doing trades, they use plumbing as an example. I know plumbers. It's not some chill, high-paying job. It's hard work, and if you're not a good old boy or Nepo hire, don't think you're getting into the union or move up from apprenticeship. Story 131. I was a marine mammal trainer and a zookeeper for a while, playing with animals all day, right? No, the water is super cold. The people are really full of themselves, and there is a lot of drama and hazing and backstabbing. You're outside in all weather, work all holidays and weekends, miss major family events. You make zero money because you only do that work because you love and care for the animals. And anytime I wanted time off, I was guilted for not being more dedicated. Edited to add that also you get a lot of dislike from the anti-zoo crowd. But it's not like you're the one that put the animals in the zoo. You're just trying your best to do right by them and provide the best care possible because you can't change their circumstances. Story 132. Farmer. I just wanted to buy some land and grow my own food, but in reality, it's a lot of early mornings, hard labor, and dirty clothes. Story 133. I mean, it's not romanticized per se, but I think there's a huge misunderstanding about educators having summers off. I'm a prof, and summers are just when I work for free. I'm only paid a 9-month contract, and given the expectations of my job, I can't take 2.5 months off. LOL. I probably average less time off than folks working in corporate America. Story 134. Being an artist or creative, everyone thinks it's cool. You get to be creative all day, but in reality, you're cut off from the world because you're stuck in a studio or whatever. You have to deal with annoying and picky clients, most of which don't want to utilize your skill set, trying to rip you off. You don't always have a good idea of when you're getting paid. Perfectionism becomes as normal of an emotion as being hungry or tired, taking substances to overcome creative block. Yeah, don't become an artist. Story 135. Advertising. Unless you get lucky, it's pretty soulless. And if your agency loses a major client, layoffs are almost always guaranteed. Story 136. Toy designer. Making branded plastic crap for as cheap as possible, then trying to get it made quickly to get it on a boat from China in time for Christmas. Story 137. Journalism and advertising. It's in the movies, TV all the time. They've got one story client that's not even a particularly difficult story client, and by the end of it, them being done that story is part of the big resolution. In reality, you're expected to write 3-4 stories a day every day, plus do some extra stuff on a side for abysmal pay. Plus, if something happens at 10 p.m., you're working at 10 p.m. Story 138. Zookeeper. You get paid absolutely nothing, and your zoo management team usually won't care about you because they have someone else frothing at the mouth to take your job. Story 139. A lot of private pay rehab therapists, speech-language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists don't get paid unless they have a patient in front of them. All email calls to teachers, doctors, parents, creating home exercise programs, documentation, setting up or creating materials, researching treatment methods, coordinating care with other therapists is all unpaid time. They are also required to take continuing education courses or to maintain their licenses, and a lot of times employers don't reimburse fully or at all for those, or cover the cost for employees to renew their licenses. Then you have the emotional labor and mental load of helping all of your patients and their caregivers, which is easier to manage if you don't have your own people you need to care for. Story 140. I've been a small-scale farmer for 20 years. I can't tell you how many people visit the farm and wish they could do it too. You're so lucky you get to work outside with your hands is the common refrain. But in reality, it's virtually impossible. Growing vegetables as a business is so complicated with so many variables. And on top of all of that, you have to make money doing it. Story 141. Event planning. I was a senior event manager for a 1,200-person space, and everyone thought it was so glamorous because of the interesting events or people that were at the events. Yeah, every once in a while, I'd post a photo of me drinking champagne with someone cool. But the reality is, it's putting out fires for 18 hours on event days, walking 20K steps, dressed up and running through kitchens, back areas sweating. By the time I'd get home at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, my body would be throbbing, and I could only sleep on Sundays. You work MF in an office organizing the event, managing evening events, WF, and then all Saturday executing buyouts. I had zero life outside of the industry. I was burned out by 33. Story 142. Being a chef, and confusing that with just being a line cook, by the way. Both include extremely demanding work, including hot and cold environments, dangerous equipment, sharp objects, knives included, extreme attention to detail, constant mindfulness of the clock since we need it for timing everything, and anywhere from 10, 14 or more hours a day. All whole typically being one of the more underpaid areas in hospitality. Being a chef also entails managing people and their personalities and challenges. Product coming in and going out of the kitchen, the schedule. My current roster has 60 employees, complete with reviews and discipline when necessary. Understanding of kitchen and restaurant business financials so that your food and labor costs are in line and above board, all whole being able to be creative and write menus and recipes to exacting specifications so that duplication, regardless of the employee, becomes easier. Story 143. Software engineer. Maybe I'm the minority, but I've never once had the ultra-high-paying software dev job where I log in, check emails, go have coffee, fix a bug, and call it a day. Those people on social media, I swear, were hired just to make the job look glamorous. In reality, maybe I'm just unlucky. It's pure stress all day, every day. Tons of meetings. You get maybe an hour or two of coding time tops in a day. You have project managers who don't understand that you can't just give them an estimate when you're provided literally no time to research what is needed for something they're asking for. You also have project managers who promise things to clients without ever consulting the software dev team and then expect you to deliver X feature in 3 months with only those 1-2 hours of coding time per day. Also, most people in software dev can't even write code. They just ended up there in weird middle management roles. Story 144. I'm going to go with any type of influencer streamer type. It takes a long time to accumulate a following, and if you ever stop putting out content, people forget about you and move on to the next content creator. Story 145. All of them. This whole get paid the lowest your employer is able to give the most amount of effort you choose so you can pay taxes to support billionaires living a lifestyle I could never dream of at this point. Working is romanticized. Having to be gainfully employed makes you an acceptable member of society. Story 146. Not as bad as some here, but data entry and back office work. Sure, you get to work sitting down and it looks great and relaxing from the outside in, but the mental load is ridiculous. The software you need to use to do your job every day is held together with hope and dreams, so it will be breaking constantly, and you're going to have to find weird workaround. Processes change and can be dramatically different, with no warning, so you're retraining constantly on the same things over and over, sometimes even just days apart. The quotas at most places I've worked are set so high you can just barely reach on a good day. But previously mentioned system issues are going to screw you most of the time. Managers are usually constantly breathing down your neck to get production numbers up. Your window for error is usually 1, and I've had a job where if you made 2 mistakes in a single day, they send you home. Pay is usually awful, the worst I've experienced being $12 an hour in 2022. My current company is a lot better, but in general, data entry can suck jerk, but at least you can wear your PJs if it's work from home. Story 147. Industrial design. There are 1,000 applicants for a single job. Then, if you get the one, it's extreme amounts of work for low pay. It's professionals who are usually more art-minded than financial-minded. Then even if they put it in the time and make it, many of the starting salaries are like low 40K range, absolutely bananas. Story 148. Applied arts. Everyone thinks they can do your job, but without years of education and practice, and tells you you're lazy and entitled for trying to be paid at all. Big companies steal your good work, and in the meantime, you have to make shoot work because that's what the clients demand. It's not living your whimsy, artsy dream life. It's being trapped as an eternal intern that everyone shoot on while also shamelessly demanding your labor for free, which none of them would if they could in fact do it themselves. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vanchoose. See you soon.